monitor. I'm sorry?
I just recorded it. That's all.
Okay.
We just don't want to lose it. Okay,
Do you want me to begin again?
we're good.
Okay, I'm gonna begin from the very beginning then. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna give you a brief report on the status of the water quality in the Florida Keys. With data from 20 years of monitoring. The sanctuary began to operate in 1990, and then it required a water quality protection plan and a water quality protection program, and also water quality monitoring program or project, which is the one that FIU has been working on since 1995. And starting that year, we began sampling these chemical species, nitrogen and phosphorus species, as well as carbon, silica, chlorophyll. And we measure salinity, dissolved oxygen, temperature, light, how much light gets into the water column, and also turbidity. With all that data, we were able to classify water types within the sanctuary, and then we produce this map that you have here, and those areas get water which are very similar, so it's easier than just working with individual stations. Those small dots are the individual stations that we have been monitoring. And then
Dr. Briseno, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're still all on the first slide. You either need to choose from beginning to make the slideshow go, but we're just still seeing your introductory slide.
oh, okay, wait a minute.
Do you see in the upper left below the word file says from beginning? You can play it and then press your space or your mouse to make it go forward.
I'm trying to find a way to.
Do you see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen? There's a icon that says from beginning with a green.
Yeah.
I think just click it again. There you go.
Let's see if it works. Let's see, it moved now
No,
to the second one.
No,
no. Can you try double clicking on it?
Okay, I'm trying to. I did what I was supposed to do. Let's see again. I'm gonna go to slide.
from beginning, click on from beginning.
Can you see a change now or not?
No, no, it's not taking your input.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on, but can you see the second
There
slide?
we go.
Oh, there
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go with this because I don't know what's going on with this.
Okay.
I tried, yeah, from the beginning, but it doesn't work. Okay, so what we had in this case was that we had, let's see. Can you
Oh,
see it
same.
now?
can you press your F5 key?
Pretty sure what?
It says press your F5 key, like Frank number 5. On the top of your keyboard. Otherwise, we'll just keep going the way you're doing it.
Okay. How about now?
No,
Okay.
just back to the beginning.
Oh, back to the beginning, no changed?
No.
Oh, God. I don't know what's going on. And I'm sorry for this. What I
You can
could
just
do
make-
is just send you the presentation, so you can
Yeah.
put it on your screen, and you can begin, have your normal board meeting. In the meantime, I can send you the presentation so you can upload it.
I think if you just click on the slides as you go, that works.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you can see this one now.
Yeah, the third slide, we see it.
Okay, so listen, so we have this monitoring parameters that we work on for all these years. And then that's the number of stations that we have had. Right now we only have 112 stations. The program has been, squeezed because of budget cuts. And now you can see that what our waters in the Florida Keys, are very complex because of the circulation patterns. So it's not very easy to define water quality in our system because we have all these currents moving around, and then there are some things that we cannot control for those. Okay, so like this is the major circulation pattern in the Caribbean. Here's Cuba, here's the Gulf of Mexico. So we have this current. That thing moves about 100 times the water of all the rivers in the world, equivalent, just 30 billion gallons per second. That's what it moves. So anyway, and that's something that we cannot control. So we'll have to put up with whatever the system brings us here. Things like sargassum, which come with all these currents, and it's not produced here. It's not produced in the Keys, but come to our shorelines. So those are things that we have to, see how we protect our ecosystem, but there's not too much we can do. Also, we cannot do a lot with hurricanes. They come, and they really cause major damage and major disruptions in our water quality. And some of those changes are, very fast. They could go back to previous conditions in a matter of a few months or a few years, but sometimes they are permanent. They go beyond possibilities of coming back. There is no return. And then we have some processes and some impacts that perhaps we can somehow control or we can manage them, like the input from the Everglades, the input from the Keys themselves, the input from the city of Miami. That water sometimes comes to Biscayne Bay and then circulates south to the Florida Keys. So it's not only in the Biscayne Bay, but also affecting the Florida Keys. Whatever happens, the Keys, this area is not like Vegas, Whatever happened here doesn't stay here, it goes everywhere, okay, and affect us. And so whenever we have a hurricane like what we had last year with Irma in 2017, all that water then moved, all that trash and debris and chemical compounds and fertilizers, all kind of things move into the water, and then they move back south all the way down to the Florida Keys and our coral reef. So, that's something that's very difficult to control. Okay, what are the long-term trends? I'm going to give you a summary of what happened in the last 28 years. Phosphorus has been increasing along the Keys themselves, the islands, you see, and that increase seems to be related to an increase also in chlorophyll. That means that the algae is growing for sure. It's growing much more because we have more phosphorus, more nutrient for them, and then we have that phosphorus come from the city themselves, and urban development. Nitrogen has been declining, as carbon has also been declining. A very similar pattern like the one we have with nitrogen, and that has to do with the contribution from the Everglades and Florida Bay. And then we have dissolved oxygen. Dissolved oxygen has been increasing almost everywhere, so that's a positive sign. That's at least we have good news with oxygen, and then both in surface waters and bottom waters. And then light, how much light reaches the bottom has been declining. In other words, the benthic communities, including corals, seagrass, etc., have less light to generate, whatever they need using photosynthesis, because there is less light hitting the bottom. And so that's problematic. And then finally, most of the problems, actually, let me put it this way. When we designed the initial monitoring program, the objective of that program was not to measure pollution coming from the keys. It was a general program to see the general conditions of the ecosystem, mostly on the coral reef. So that's why in 2011, we decided to install 10 new stations, at least what we could with the budget, to measure some impact from the keys themselves. So we have, along the, Isla Morada, Key Largo, Marathon, Big Pine, and Key West, we have some stations that we monitor also quarterly. And then you can see, using the data from these stations, I'm going to use only phosphorus and nitrogen here, because the very important nutrient for the biota in general, that phosphorus has been increasing, nitrogen has been increasing in Key Largo, in Isla Morada, in Marathon, in Big Pine, and Key West. So we have had increases of these nutrients region-wide. And I think we don't have enough stations. I think we have more to be a little more, robust, have a little more robust data set. So we have data from 2011 here, and we are beginning to see, to be able to to outline trends in the concentrations of these nutrients. All of this come from your cities, from your canals, from your gardens, from your golf courts, from fertilizers, you name it. So that's an urban contribution to water quality, to a bad one, in fact, to water quality. And that's what I have as a very brief summary of all this. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I had one. You
Okay.
mentioned hurricanes cause major damage and disruption, and I imagine you're referring to it affects water quality. Is that the same thing? The water comes on shore and runs off into the nearshore waters, and that's how hurricanes cause damage and disruption that's permanent? Or is that just damage to the reef itself?
Yeah, what's happened is that we have. Well, let's see which one was it slide that we were talking about. The problem with the hurricane. What happens sometimes is that the geomorphology changes. Sand is moved. Some seagrass are destroyed. Even coral reef are destroyed during hurricane. And so the conditions are not the same as they were before. And sometimes the system takes a very long time to recover, if ever. And there are cases, we can cite many cases around the world, where we have had some changes, and the system, the ecology of the area, have not been able to go back to previous conditions. And that's when you have this major shift. They are called system shifts, like those in, for example, Chesapeake Bay. They have problems with the nutrients coming from agriculture. They lost all the seagrasses. They try to control the input of nutrients, and they did, but they didn't get the seagrass back. They haven't after 30 years. So that's the kind of things that sometimes happen. We go beyond a threshold, and then sometimes the system cannot go back.
So what could we at Last Stand do? Okay, Roger, did you have a question? Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I had one request. Great presentation, Doctor, and great information there. If you could provide a copy of that to someone with Last Stand, I would love to have a copy of
Sure,
that
I will.
presentation.
And I will
And then
send you
this,
the full report for last year. We have annual reports and we update the whole thing. And so
Okay.
I'm gonna send you the last one, the 2022 report and this presentation for sure. And I'm
that'd be
open.
great.
Whenever you need, you have some questions, just send me an email. I'll be glad to answer.
That'd be great. And then the follow-on question, I'm certain I know the answer, but were you aware that the city of Key West is starting a water quality monitoring program with the College of the Florida Keys? I don't know if you know Dr. Patrick Rice, who is
I am in that project too. I am co-PI of that project. Unfortunately, it has taken too long. And there were some problems due to COVID and then buying the equipment and things that has been delayed for a long time. And I think Dr. Rice sent me some information. I haven't received that report that I have to review or find a presentation to EPA. But yeah, I am aware of that monitoring program around Key West. And actually,
Okay.
that thing began when I wrote a very short report on the changes that occurred during the what we call the anthropause. So when everything calmed down during COVID, that we didn't have that many ships going down there, people were in their houses and all that, that actually causes some changes, significant changes in turbidity, like water were clearer, more fish were coming to your shorelines. So I wrote a report on that using our data. So, and that actually gave some people the kick that they needed to begin doing their own monitoring down there, which I think is very good.
Well, I just to give you a quick update, you're right. They've been talking about this program and initiating it for several years now, and it's just now starting to get off the ground. And as a matter of fact, this week at a Key West City Commission meeting, they're going to present their plan on this new water quality program that's a joint venture between the city and with the College of Florida Keys. But if you would make yourself available after this Thursday introduction of the plan, we might want to get your take and your input on the plan and how it might be able to be improved. That would be really, really useful if you'd be willing to do so.
Yeah, well, I don't have I don't have any information on what's going to be presented there.
Yeah, I will provide that to you after it gets presented on Thursday.
Even though I am copy of the project, I don't know what is going to be presented. Sometimes communications are very difficult. And so I like to see results too, and I know that Rice has had some problems with getting the equipment because of all this problem with the supply of electronics and things. And so things have been delayed for quite some time. And we have analyzed some samples that he has sent us to analyze here in our labs, and but we're still waiting for more samples. We need to do this more regular. I mean, this more permanently, doing the sampling and doing the whole things that all the things that we were supposed to be doing to monitor water around Key West for sure.
Joyce, you
Thank
have
you.
a question?
Oh, sure.
Yes, Dr. Briseño, when you presented long-term trends with the various chemical components, nitrogen was down, carbon was down, but when we saw the 5 different graphs and the long-term trends, it looked like the trends were slowly heading up. So I'm curious about the discrepancy there.
was it only phosphorus on those area graphs?
That was the
Oh,
halo.
well, yeah, what happened when we see the general maps like this one, let me go for phosphorus here, for example. You see the red area right along, where the cities are, where the keys are. And that's where the stations that I was showing you, these stations here, that's where they are located, very close to shore. And that's where we have increases. So we have increases very close to shore, but in general, the areas, region-wise, are not changing that much. You see some changes right there on the islands, but along the Reef Track and Marquesas and the backcountry, there's not that much change. See what I mean? So the changes and the impacts are mostly kind of very close to shore.
You also mentioned that
I have two approaches. One for these regional, changes over 28 years, and these are only from 2011, very close to shore. But these ones are very important because those are the ones we can control somehow, because we are responsible of this.
That was my question is, do they consider, now you've got 12 years of data specifically about the halo zone? Is that considered statistically significant? Scientifically, you can say we see a clear trend versus
Yeah, I
28 years.
I waited 10 years to begin plotting these diagrams and saying something about the halo. Because with 10 years, our data is statistically robust. But what happened is that there are two things that I have to make quite clear here. One, our sampling is quarterly. So we sample only 4 times a year. That's not enough. Also, we have only 10 stations for the whole Florida Keys. So, representativity of this is in question for sure.
So
but
who
we have, and I wish we had more. I wish we have, high frequency data, but we don't, and it's very expensive. That's why we're using other methodologies like remote sensing, using satellites, or trying to make some links of water quality, nutrients with some other parameters that we can measure higher frequency in buoys, for example. And but that's work which is being doing right now. What happened is that monitoring, for most people is not very sexy. It's not very exciting to go and do the damn thing over and over and over again, the same thing, go to the same place, take the same sample, take the same measure, and do the same analysis. And yeah, it's not sexy. And so they don't really consider monitoring is very important, and budgets are usually cut. They realize that monitoring is important when they have to make decisions, and they need the data, and they need robust data to have a good, take a good decision, on mostly for policymakers. And then that's when problems start.
Has the sanctuary ever considered beyond the 10 or more frequently than the quarterly? Is that, and maybe that's a question for Karen, if she's still on.
Yeah, if we do sampling more frequently, which be more better for sure. What happened is that there are some phenomena, like daily respiration, as an example of algae. That would depend upon daylight and change during the day and night. During the nighttime, there's only respiration. There is no production of chlorophyll, so there is not oxygen produced. So we don't know what happened at night because we are not collecting any data at night. We collect data during the daytime. So this is just an example of how we are somehow restricted, somehow away from taking a good view of the whole thing. We see just part of the phenomena, and then we assume a lot of things in order to come out with some kind of explanation for all this. But we are always kind of on shaky grounds, you see. And so what we need is more stations that we could be monitoring water quality permanently, like a station with a bunch of instruments which are measuring permanently water quality, some parameters of water quality, so we know temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, chlorophyll, etc. And then we get all that data relayed real time to our computers, so I can give you an answer of what's going on right now at that site. We
So
can
why
do
is-
that, and
why
it's
is
been
dissolved
done in some
oxygen-
places.
I'm sorry, why is dissolved oxygen improving? What do you contribute that to?
Oh, one thing that systems they respond very rapidly with dissolved oxygen. Like perhaps you remember when some canals were being kind of remediated a few years ago. The first thing we saw in those canals after whatever measure, backfilling or installing some air curtain, things like that, was that oxygen concentration increased. That's the way the system responded faster. It's a very dynamic parameter in water. And I think that there are some potential reasons. One is that we have been connecting your houses to the sewers, the whole network, despite some, for example, we haven't seen any change with phosphorus, and because phosphorus is positive changes, because it's very difficult, and that thing, when you had the septic tanks, all those waters coming out of the septic tanks, which go on the ground, move to the bedrock, phosphorus stays there. Okay, and some of it goes to the nearby canal on the shorelines, but some of the phosphorus stay on the rock, like precipitations of this compound. And then they stay there for a long time. When you have had septic tank for 50 years, well, imagine the amount of phosphorus which has been fixed in the ground. And that's now, even after you cut down the use of septic tanks, all that gunk that was deposited there along 50 years is now being leached out. So you still have some phosphorus coming out to the waters. That's why you don't see major changes in phosphorus after remediation, but you do see changes in oxygen. Okay.
Okay, so I guess we've gone a little over our time amount for this, but that is an excellent presentation. Karen, you were going to add some information, like what could we do? Is it the sanctuary that funds these things? And if there's a need for more funding or more stations or more frequent testing, is that something the sanctuary funds?
Good questions. Hopefully all can hear me. And sorry, my video doesn't seem to be working today, even when I try to turn it on.
We can-
Okay. So the sanctuary, we actually collaborate on all of these water quality type efforts through the water quality protection program that Henry mentioned at the very beginning of his presentation. That program was established as part of the legislation that created the sanctuary and is co-chaired by EPA and DEP in consultation with Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. But basically, that is an interagency body that works together to provide recommendations on a suite of things that the water quality protection program does. So from corrective action, so things like this sewering the Keys, that was something that the water quality protection program was really involved in. There's an education and outreach piece, but they also steer the monitoring and research activities. And EPA is the funding agency for the vast majority of the monitoring and the research that goes on in the sanctuary related to water quality. And that being said, I think that an opportunity for this group to get more involved would be to actually participate or attend at least water quality protection program meetings when those happen. We try to be really responsive to concerns from the community in either designing specialized targeted studies to understand a water quality issue, or certainly we'd welcome recommendations and requests. It's good for EPA and DEP and the rest of our partners on the steering committee to hear from the community about things that you want to see. So additional nearshore water quality monitoring could certainly be one of those things. I know we're over, so I wanted to mention two last things. One, we have it on our to-do list, which is pretty ambitious, and we have very little capacity currently to actually run this program. But one of the things on our to-do list is to actually take a look at the design of the water quality monitoring programs we have in the sanctuary, this one being a primary component of that, and say, hey, are we measuring the right things where we need to measure them and at the right frequency? Are we able to answer the management questions we have today based on this program? And if not, how could we explore improving upon that? And that might include, and probably will include in the recommendation, more nearshore sites. So that's something that we have had on the docket for a while and just have not had a chance to really dive into. But hearing from others in the community about your interest in that and the importance of this nearshore component, I think could help. And then second thing I want to mention, and I can follow up with some additional information, but DEP and FIU recently collaborated to install 4 new telemetered water quality monitoring stations at the reef. So what that means is that these are collecting data, I think every 15 minutes, and sending them back, providing real-time data at Molasses, Sand Key, Sombrero, and Fowey Rocks on parameters. Let me see if I can remember them: temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, and a number of other things. So it's not perfect. It's certainly not solving the problem of not having this more high resolution, high frequency data, but I think it's going to be a helpful piece to this puzzle to better understand, you know, some of these patterns over time that we can't capture with the quarterly monitoring. So the data, they're working on a portal. FIU is working on a portal to have that information available, but I can send you the public site where you can go and check out what those data show anytime as a follow-up to this call.
Oh, thank you. So Don, you have?
Yeah, can I say something here?
Yes.
If you can hear me okay?
Yes.
I think as everybody probably knows, we took water samples of our own, 9 of them from Bow Channel, mostly Bow Channel, Cudjoe Gardens, and a couple from Niles Channel to send FIU to get sucralose readings on them. We're still waiting to get those back. But also took a sample from Cudjoe Gardens, and we sent it to a lab in South Carolina through Brian LaPointe to see what species of algae was blooming there, and we got those results back. We have a species that kind of surprised us, but anyhow, I just don't. I mean, it's pretty obvious something's going on out there, and it seemed to be centered in Bow Channel. On either side of Bow Channel, Niles Channel, and the other one south of that, water wasn't quite as bad. It was green, it was bad, but Bow Channel was actually a brownish color. And of course, Cudjoe Gardens, it was horrible. People were getting sick. There was swimming in the canals. You could smell it when you pulled up. When we pulled up to get water samples in my truck, you could actually smell it. But as we were getting samples out there, we got a phone call from the Aqueduct Authority from Jay Miller. And as we're in the canal, smelling the water and seeing how bad it is, there's actually foam on the surface in some places. We were told there's no pollution problem. Now, you know, what does he define pollution as? And also, if you look at go back to the article from the Tim O'Hara wrote on the brown water or the green water, Greg Velez, the head of the FKA, is quoted as saying there's been no reported sewer line breaks or impacts to the Cudjoe Regional Wastewater Treatment System and the Lower Keys. We're not experiencing anything out of the ordinary, Velez said. Everything is normal. Now, really, Okay, then there's an incident report. You probably, hopefully all have seen that, where there was not actually a break on Big Pine. The sewer lines were never connected for something like a year. They're reporting 72,399 gallons of raw sewage was spewed out into the ground. This is the contractor's fault. They never actually even connected the pipes. So how many more are out there like that? I don't know. But it's difficult to really tell what's going on. And I want to disagree with Karen a little bit on this. People are not really working together. If the Aqueduct Authority is telling you one thing, and we got incident reports telling you something else, people are not working together on this thing. So it's a bit troubling to me, but we'll get our own results back. I hope it shows that the sucralose is really low and that it's not a sewage problem, but you know, I don't know. We'll wait and we'll see. So that's where we're at now.
What was the surprising species of algae and why was it surprising?
It's still really preliminary, and that's not something that Last Stand paid for. I was sent the prepaid shipping label by a lab in South Carolina, and they didn't get it to me in time, so the samples that I took set overnight. And I talked with Brian Lapointe. I said, you know, they set overnight and they really smell, Brian. Should I send these out or go get new ones? He said, oh, go get new ones if you can. So I got them that morning and sent them out that afternoon. But when I got the new out samples and I unscrewed the lid, you know, after I got back to the house and smelled it, they smelled the same. And the water when I was sampling actually smelled. So something was really going on there. And the sample, I'd feel more comfortable if somebody would talk with Brian and get the results, the species of the sample from him and why it was so odd, rather than, you know, than me saying, because I'm not in on the chemistry like Brian is, and that might be a better way to do it. And I would definitely hold off going to the press with anything until we get the sucralose samples back and talk with Brian, let him talk to Tim O'Hara or somebody and about the species of algae and why it was so odd. So
Well, you can send your samples. You have to send them too far away. You know, there is somebody in Key Largo, Dr. Tom Frankovich, that he can analyze those samples. He has offered many times to analyze them, and he can do that overnight in some cases, you know. So I can send you the email of Dr. Frankovich. So next time you have these kind of issues, you can send samples to him, and he will be glad to analyze them for you. And yeah, there are problems that sometimes they are local problems, you know, like a spill or something like that. That is not, you know, region-wide, but just localized in some areas. And that's the kind of things that have to be clear somehow. Try to avoid these spills like that. Also, I remember all the problems we have had with injection wells and all that.
yes,
And I mean, there are many injection wells in the Keys that they are too shallow. I'm really sorry that they are too shallow, and that there is a communication between the aquifer at that depth and surface. I remember what happened in Cudjoe Key, because I was the one who got all the fire to that. I did the analysis, I did the study to demonstrate that there was a connection between the injection depth, which was 120 feet, and surface. And then the aqueduct didn't believe me. So they contracted a company, and the company made a bunch of holes and did some studies, and their conclusion was that there was not any problem. And then when you read the report, and I can remember figure number 5 shows exactly the evidence that there was a connection. And then they didn't even mention that. They had to go to court, and I was in court. And I asked, the attorney from them asked me how much I have learned from that report. Said, you know, I really learned a lot. I'm really glad that that report was put out, because figure number 5, when you show that all the wells and the buoy, which is measuring tidal variability, all of them matches in frequency and amplitude. The only way that can happen is if they are connected. Well, that's when the whole thing finished. They reached an agreement with the people from Coyhaique, and that was, the end of it. But that's what happened sometimes. And some people don't want to accept what's going on. Like, people don't want to accept that sea level is rising. Some people don't want to accept that the whole damn world is warming up. And human nature, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to prolong this because I know we are running over, but have you been hearing of specific issues happening in the Summerlin Cudjoe region this summer where the water is particularly unusual for this region?
No, I used to receive some data, some results in the past. I know that some colleagues here, Dr. Piero Gardinali, he's analyzing sample for sucralose. Sucralose is an indicator of human impact, and I was the one who began developing that thing here in South Florida, in Biscayne Bay, and also in the Florida Keys. And Biscayne Bay, I had problem with the mayor because I showed that there was some significant impact from their pumps, and yeah, keep on using sucralose, because that's a good indicator of whenever you have an input from humans on water quality.
I'll throw out there that I've heard scattered reports and have been reaching out to FWC and DEP to see if they're have also heard of that, because remember, DEP is our state's lead agency for water quality, especially if it's a regulatory thing. Haven't heard of any associated fish kill, so I don't believe FWC has done any sampling. And I know DEP was planning to go out and sample, but that was the day that Idalia was kind of scooting by Key West, so that got stymied. So I'll reach back out and see if they've been able to reschedule that to grab some additional samples. In the meantime, I would be interested if you guys get any results from what you have sampled and you don't mind sharing them. I'd love to see it. And if this is something that warrants some additional conversation and potential exploration of funding to do a more comprehensive investigation about what's going on here, that's definitely something that we could talk about bringing before the Water Quality Protection Program. So anything you could share, I'd love it.
And did we cut you off from going through a couple things that you were going to mention about how we could be more involved?
There's probably more specifics we could talk about, but I think the take-home message is participating in those water quality protection program meetings. I heard loud and clear the disagreement about people working together, and I will tell you, it is really hard to coordinate amongst all of these various agencies who have their own directives and small slices of the pie that all collectively matter for water quality. But I still really think that having this forum in our water quality protection program to get those people together and actually dig into these things is a really valuable tool. It's not perfect, but it's helpful. And as I mentioned, we absolutely welcome and actually encourage public participation in that. So, folks like you who keep people honest and aren't afraid to ask those tough questions, I think is a really valuable piece. So please get involved, and I'd be happy to share. I'll try to make sure through Dottie, I guess I have your contact information. I'll share information whenever any of those meetings are taking place. We're going to have one before the end of the year, so that might be a great opportunity to talk about this stuff.
Andrea had a question about.
I'd be glad to take a look on whatever data you have, when you do your analysis from whatever lab. If you want to send me the reports, I'll take a look and give you my opinion too.
You hear that, Don?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, can I say one more thing here, jump in?
Sure.
we sent those samples to South Carolina because it was of no charge. They paid for the shipping and the analysis and all that. That's basically
Well, that's
the
good.
reason we sent it up there. So if there's someone closer by that can do it, you know, it's always a funding thing with this too. But one thing we could use some help on, we're trying to get information to Sunshine Key, the campground there, Ohio Key, whether they're on their own injection well system, which would probably be shallow well, or if they're hooked up to the main sewer lines that would go to Cudjoe. We've asked for the records, we can't seem to get those. I took samples across the street. There's a small, for lack of a better word, a pond on the south side. It really smells bad. And I can't say that it's sewage, it smells like sewage, could be sargassum, but I took some water samples there. They're in my freezer. We don't know what's going on there. That would be a lot of sewage going into the ground if they're on the shallow well there. If somebody could find out that information for us, that would be great.
Something regarding the smell of water. That does really smell very bad, you know, like rotten eggs. That's hydrogen sulfide.
Right,
It's just generated when you have a reduced environment, when you don't have enough oxygen in the water. It's not necessarily that you have a sewer contribution to the site. You
Right.
can have low oxygen in
Yes.
a water body without having sewer going there, okay? So do not take only the smell of the water. And actually, it's interesting because you know it's good because it's a good indicator right away. It will give you a kick in the smell, so it will let you know that something's wrong there. But you have to measure some other things in order to assess if you really have, you know, sewer or something else.
right. Yeah, I don't want to jump to conclusions about Sunshine Key, but it smells bad and we took samples. If it comes up really high in sucralose, well, then it might be something
Yeah.
that should be looked at.
Yeah.
I have some contacts. Let me see if I can figure out the situation over there and get back to you all.
Oh, thank you. Andrea asked about the cost. How much cost are you talking involved with installing more near shore sites? Do we know is there a figure on that?
I'd ask Henry since he's the one who gets the funding from
Sorry,
EPA.
How much is what?
Cost for their Halo Zone site or more?
Yeah,
The whole monitoring program per year is $500,000, and that has-
500,000, did you say?
Yeah, $5,100 a year.
Wait, 500 or 5,000?
500,
500,000.
100,000. And what happened is that it has been that for several years, and actually is in deficit right now, and we have to change that a little more. And that's what I was telling you. It sounds expensive, but when you think that you are sampling, you know, 112 stations along all that area, right? And collecting a lot of data besides just the samples, and then analyzing for, you know, then at the end you have about 25 different species. So at the end, it's a very economic, very cheap program as compared to what you could have to pay a company to do the same kind of work. Universities, research centers usually get a little amount of money for doing a heck of a lot of work. And but that's
Okay, all right. So I think we've, Joyce?
Yeah,
I-
quick question to Dr. Briseno. So would your recommendation be that we ask to double the number of Halo sampling sites?
I cannot tell you that doubling is the right number. I should have to just sit down and think for a while and then go over the maps and the data and some statistics, and then I can tell you how many sites should be necessary. But for sure, it should be increased for sure. And one of the things that I am doing for that right now is, if not collecting samples of those sites, I bought an instrument which I can put in a boat, and that instrument will pump water, you know, and pump it on board and analyze it right away. So it's a flow-through system, it can go very fast. You can go, in a boat at 15, 20 knots. And so you can go around the Keys with that on your boat, and then you can get the data on water quality in those areas for sure. It's not the whole thing, it's not nutrient, but there are some other parameters that you can measure. You have an idea of water quality. And that's what I'm going to be doing, starting this next sampling at the end of this year, besides what I'm doing now.
Well, that's nice because it's not a fixed site. You can move around with that.
Yeah, and then you can have a map,
Yeah.
of the area, not just one site, but you see geographic distribution of water quality, which is important. Perhaps will be good in order to give you some information on the potential existence of hotspots,
Yeah.
areas which are with more problems than others, or changes with time, that kind of things. And that for sure will take a little more money from the project I am working on right now. But EPA has been, you have to thank EPA. You have to thank NOAA for all the work that these people do for the Keys. For years, individuals and the institutions as such, they really do a heck of a lot of work, and they do as much as they can with money. At least in my case, they have been funding this project for 28 years, NOAA and mostly EPA nowadays. And NOAA, it covers part of it, but the sampling is covered by EPA. So it's important to let them know that you recognize their work.
Well, thank you. I thank you very much, Dr. Briseno. That was quite a lot of information. It was
Okay.
very enlightening as well. And thank you for your offer to help us with some of our questions as we move forward and make decisions about what we want to do as a board. So
I'll send you some information and the link to Dr. Frankovich. So if you need some data or some information on help with the algae.
okay.
Great, very
Right,
very
I gotta go. I
helpful,
have
thank
another
you.
meeting. Thank you very much.
And thank you,
Thank
Karen,
you.
for joining us as well.
Yeah.
You
My
guys.
pleasure.
Okay.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Somebody needs to take the screen down, or
Think when,
who does the screen, Mary, do you know?
I imagine it'll go away when Dr. Bristino logs off.
Oh,
if
okay,
he-
okay.
If
American
he exits
Probably
the meeting.
overcontrol.
Okay, well, that was very good. I hope everybody got, thank you, Don, for being able to join us and keep us up to date on that water quality
thank
quality
you.
testing you're doing. So, all right, so, business, we have a quorum, so that's good. Anne, right? You agree with that?
Yes, we do.
Do we have any changes to the agenda? No?
I have quick updates, but we can get to them when we get to them.
Okay. We have the August meetings that Joyce sent out, very well written, very detailed about what we went to that long meeting last time over all the committees. Do we have a motion to accept that?
Motion for approval from Roger.
Seconded.
Second, okay, any objections? No? Okay, the minutes are approved. Roger, you're here. I didn't know if you were gonna join, so you have the treasurer's report?
Yeah, I sent out a report, I think I mentioned to you in the last couple weeks with the financials through our third quarter, our third fiscal quarter to end in June 30, along with the recent $20,000 award that we received for our new permanent endowment account. And so I'd be glad to entertain any questions on that, and I will have some updated financials coming out in the near coming weeks. But I also wanted to solicit input from anybody and everybody on our fiscal 2024 budget for the period beginning October 1 of 2023 through September 30 of 2024. And I'm hoping that the executive committee will be meeting beginning next week to try to hash out a first draft of that fiscal 24 budget, but certainly any of the other board members that have any input or questions or concerns or items that they want to make sure that we have funding provided in the draft of the budget, if you could forward that on to myself or Ann or anybody on the executive committee, and then the executive committee will meet and kind of come up with a first draft budget next week, hopefully to position ourselves to get a budget discussed and approved at our October board meeting. So that's just a real quick summary of what's going on with the treasurer, and I'll be glad to answer any questions as well. And I did at some point, I don't know where on the agenda, Dottie, I want to talk about this new program that I just sent out something in the last several days on it. I don't know if now is the right time or we should wait
Oh,
for that.
we have it down here under updates, the
Okay,
Being
great.
Stearns Legacy. Okay, yeah,
Okay, I'm done.
okay. All right, thank you, Roger. So we're not approving a report this month, but you're coming out with a budget, is that it?
Yeah, that's correct. The financials were sent. We really don't have to approve financials, but
Oh,
the
okay,
most
all
recent,
right, okay,
the most recent financials through June 30 were sent out like within the last several weeks.
okay, yeah, thank you. All right, so we have online votes that we all agreed to online, the DEO letter on hurricane evacuation model that we didn't get any response on, right? No, Mary, you never got a
Heard
response, okay.
Mm-mm.
The Community Foundation Peter McDougal match program application, which we all approved, went out. And the approval and I guess got approved, right? Is that the
They
20,000?
got approved and we got $20,000.
That's right. And the approval to cover the cost of $300 for the FIU water testing for Superlist that we heard is not back yet. So that's great. Committee reports. So I think goals and
Can I
issues.
just put a quick comment? I already forwarded this information to Roger, but it may in fact be a smidge higher than that, just because of some of the costs and the FedExing that, again, this was an initial estimate. I don't think it's going to be wildly different from that, but I did want to let people know. That's
Do
what
we
I
need
heard.
to make another vote about approving the increase, or are we good with it?
Well, let me ask you a question, Ann. I've already reimbursed the shipping cost, and I guess there was a cost from the lab that was going to be sent directly to folks. Is there an invoice that I can see related to that?
Not yet, not as far as I've
The,
heard.
Okay, okay.
My
So
notes
stay tuned.
indicate, excuse me, go ahead.
That's it.
My
Okay.
notes indicated that the motion was to approve $200 to $300 for that particular
Effort.
action.
Yeah.
So we probably need a motion for something beyond that.
And I honestly
was-
don't know what it is. Don signed off. He was the one who was coming up with some of these charges, and he gave me an initial ballpark, which is what I sent around, and I haven't heard anything since, so I don't know what to say.
I would suggest that we sit tight, and when the bills come in and they are presented for payment, if it goes over 300, I'll come back to the board with an additional approval.
Great.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so committee reports. Joyce, you have goals and issues?
Yeah, and I have to confess, I'm having trouble adjusting to the new format, so bear with me. The committee report that we sent out contained 4 recommendations. The first, I'd like Dottie to elaborate on. Bay Drive Pocket Park in Tavernier, Key Largo. And Dottie, your letter went out, but if you can give us a thumbnail, please.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't send it out yet. So we're looking for approval from the board, but I wrote the letter and shared it with the board. Joyce helped me with the editing, and basically that's in our comp plan and in the livable communities, we have very clear language that says that we don't give away waterfront access. And there's this effort by this neighborhood to take over this park. This pocket park was a problem during COVID, definitely. Neighborhood was overwhelmed with people all over everywhere. And since then, the county hired a Park and Recs director, and they've taken action to address the management of that park, and it's been in much better shape. And I believe they've managed it very well now. but the neighborhood got the impression that they were going to be able to take it over and make it a HOA park. And there's been some pushback from other members of the community that use the park that don't want to be denied access to it because it would become just a private neighborhood park. So their attorney, the neighborhood's attorney, recommended that the county allow it to be. So they had some scheme to get around the comp plan. They were going to replat it or something. I didn't quite understand why that would make a difference, but have it replatted. But they needed 100% approval from the neighborhood, which they didn't get. So we're writing this letter asking them to come up with a solution where everybody can be happy. And actually on the county agenda, there is a recommendation to lease a section of the property for access for the neighborhood and leave the rest of it available to the community park. So it's sort of a compromise. And I think it's a good compromise. Everybody gets what they want. Maybe. We'll see how it goes. But I would like approval to send the letter as written because it doesn't really tell the county how to manage the issue, but rather that they should manage it within the rules of our comp plan. Yes, Roger?
So on the public access issue, Dottie, is your impression of the agenda item, and I read your description of the agenda item, it almost implies that instead of changing the ordinance or the law, they're just looking for a one-time kind of assigning that property to the association. Is that the workaround?
No. The workaround is they're going to take a lease, just a section of that pocket park so that it can be open to the neighborhood 24 hours or ever how they want to. But it's just, they take, let's say, I'll forget what the size of the lot is. Let's say it's 80 by 100.
It's like 10 feet by 200 feet is what the dimension.
Right. They're just going to take an access route. It's really like an easement. They're going to give them an easement and lease it to them.
And that's just a part of the public access to the water. Is that right? Or is that the entire public?
The parcel itself is larger than 20 by 11. And they're just going to lease them a 20 by 11, let them put their own fence, their own gate, their own rules. And they can walk down to the park, walk down to the waterfront access. I don't know if they're going to like that, but their argument has been the park is closed Tuesday through Thursday. So, and they can't use it on the weekends because it's closed. That's how they manage the crowd. They closed it off during the weekends and there's no parking and which is a problem for the cops. The cops aren't happy with that arrangement. But anyway, it's giving them a lease that they can take and use to walk down to the waterway and they can have access whenever they want. And the rest of the park will be managed the way it is managed now.
So basically it's given special rights to the neighborhood association on only a piece of the public property, yet the county rules on the rest of the public property for the general public prevent any access.
Oh, no, only limited access. No, you can go visit the park Tuesday through Thursday.
Yeah, so no weekend access to the public.
No weekend. Well, they might change that, but now that's what it is because that's solved the problem.
Dottie, do you have any concern that this proposed workaround would in any way establish a negative precedent for the future?
I don't know. I can't say. I mean, the county has leased waterfront access before. Mandalay had a bar that kind of encroached in the right-of-way access and they leased it to them for a price. And so they could keep it and it made, excluded the public for that area that they leased without giving them the whole parcel, just a section of it.
If this workaround were to sunset, if there were to be a trial period to see if it would work, I'd be happier with it to give them this lease in perpetuity.
Well, be honest with Joyce, that's not on this letter. That is on the agenda, but it's not on this letter. So if we're just going to approve the letter basically is just saying we would like you not to give away the land.
Agreed.
Because it would so that's what this letter is about. And the agenda item came out. I wasn't expecting that, but I just saw it yesterday. Which is a little bit more palatable for me because it doesn't give the land away 100%. It's an odd compromise, but it is a compromise.
So do we have a motion to approve the the good letter that Dottie wrote?
I so move.
Thank you. You need a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, any objections? All right, so we'll send the letter. So Mary, you have it, right? And you'll send it out? Okay, thank you.
The next recommendation to the board from Goals and Issues is regarding Little Palm Dolphin Resort on Little Torch Key. And we were first in a panic thinking that this would be heard, this bad project would be heard before the Planning Commission in September. But I heard informally, and then Ilse confirmed this morning that the item is tentatively scheduled for the October meeting. And I'm taking the word tentatively to mean that, well, it might be September. I mean, it might be November rather than October. Denise, do you have any insight on that?
No, if you want, I can try and see, but they sometimes switch it at the last minute. You
So you
know,
don't need a recommendation anymore, Joyce? Is that it for this
Well,
meeting?
It'll be an online vote because I was tasked with doing the letter since it was my idea, and
The letter's not
pressure
ready
came
yet.
off. But
Yeah.
I think we probably need to get a letter in if they do a late switcheroo and put it on the September.
I'll call the county, Joyce, and see if I can get a feel for when that might go.
Okay, so moving on to,
Could I just give Mary a heads up? I don't know. I can't recall if I copied you in the loop on this, but I got this call on my cell phone from Tim O'Hara saying this person associated with Little Palm, I suggested she reach out to you all since you're involved in local quality of life issues. Now, I haven't heard back from her. I did reach out to Goals Committee and Joyce to see, has anyone else been in touch with this woman? And I'm looking for her name.
Julie Marzella.
Yes.
She and her husband Jay used to own Palmer's Resort, also on Little Torch, but on the north side of the island.
Have you spoken with her, Joyce?
No, but Alicia Putney has been in contact with Julie, and let me think. There are three key people. The gentleman is Parks Banks, used to be a realtor, still is, but these people are not associated with Little Palm Dolphin Resort. They are neighborhood representatives for the Jolly Roger subdivision that is immediately south adjoining this proposed mega development.
And they're all on our side as far as fighting the approval. Is that correct?
That is correct. And Alicia put them in touch with Richard Grosso on a conference call, very informal, pro bono. And I have not heard that they have hired anyone yet.
I would just suggest, if it's appropriate, that before we fire, and I guess we don't know the timing of this meeting and when the deadline for issuing this letter is, but I think it would be appropriate for us to actually have a firsthand conversation with these neighbors that are against it to make sure our letter does not include, doesn't exclude things that we ought to be included, that we're all kind of working on the same page and off the same sheet of music, if that makes sense in the opposition.
Well, I've been on this issue through the Key Deer Protection Alliance since March, and
Okay.
the issues have not changed. Violations of the comp plan, violations of the livable communities plan, violating community character, you know, not minimizing adverse effects, not serving local residents. You know, it's a 38 unit, 3-story over parking hotel with another 4,500 square foot building in the back that would house 8 employees, probably have, you know, kitchen and laundry and all of that stuff. But one of the big things is, here's north-south Pirates Road that dead ends at US 1, and there are 200 homes in Jolly Roger, all of which use Pirates Road to go any place, east or west, and they already have traffic congestion. And there's absolutely no proposed mitigation. You know, they're talking about, actually, the number of trips a day was something like 56 from the neighbors. Just from the new development would be 218. So, you know, bad place, but I'm not for repetition. Are we still recording, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, then I won't open my big fat mouth.
But just
Anyway,
FYI, they did report that they did a 200-person petition and 190 of those were against this development. So they do have the neighborhood support. So maybe if there's something we do, we try to incorporate that idea of Rogers, or just reach out and say, here's what we're doing, just so we
And
are.
perhaps even
lockstep.
mentioning that petition in our letter would be a positive, for example, of making it more powerful.
That's what I was thinking too.
It's
Power in numbers.
Inexplicable why the DRC said, oh yeah, go ahead, this is a good project, when it has so many, you know, negative violations. Okay, so that will be an online after you see the letter, folks. The next recommendation from Goals and Issues is that when we're talking about affordable housing in public statements, that we include workforce in both written and oral statements. So it says affordable workforce housing.
Good.
Andrea,
Yep.
is that a motion?
You want to move a motion to start saying that specific phrase? Yes.
And a second?
Second.
Objections?
None. No objection.
Okay, the final recommendation to the board, aside from reviewing some things and monitoring several issues for the board, Sam Kaufman sent a letter to us when we sent out the e-blast about the judicial districts consolidation. Is there someone on the board who feels? Speak up, man.
I just want to, if we want to send another letter, I just felt like time was marching forward on not replying to him. So I simply sent a letter saying, thank you for your comments. You're always welcome to come to one of our board meetings and present, you know, your ideas, your issues, because he mentioned a whole bunch of other things, you know, educate us, do so. But by the way, the information that we shared in that e-blast came directly from the BOCC Facebook page. So that's where it came from, because it sounded like he thought we were making some of this stuff up. So we can certainly send more. I just did want to get something, a timely response off to him, at least saying something, we got your comments. And thank you.
Okay, so.
And you haven't heard
Roger-
anything back from him yet.
I did not hear anything back, and Roger's got his hand up.
Roger, I also spoke with Sam personally to just reemphasize what Ann, I think, did in an email, and is that, if there's information that we're not considering that we should have, then why isn't that information out in the public domain? Because he implied that there's lots of information that the public didn't know about that might lead people to a different decision. And then secondly, so I made that point, and he said acknowledged. And then secondly, I don't know if you guys read Bob Gould put out a link to an article about
Your
Ray
audio's
Warren.
going
Can't hear
back
you.
up. Repeat, please.
Yes, there was a link set out by Bob Gold under Key West Voices to an article by Progress. I forget the name of the blog that Ray Warren does, that went into great depth on why it might not be such a bad thing or such a terrible thing to do this consolidation of the judicial circuit. So I think it's all over the map. I think the loudest voices are coming from the people who are concerned about their jobs and the budget impacts of the financial impacts to them personally of these changes. But I think we just got to be careful, I guess, not to jump on a bandwagon when we don't really know all of the story and all of the facts. And that's not to say that we shouldn't continue to support the non-consolidation and losing our local presence, but we just, I guess we've just got to be careful to not pipe in on things when we maybe don't know enough information to really have an articulate answer.
And I think all we have done is send out both a Facebook post and an e-blast saying, here's the information we're getting from the BOCC, and please at least go fill out the survey, voice your own opinions. We're not telling you how to voice them.
And
That's
when I
true.
did the survey,
Right.
in lots of places, I said, you're asking for specific feedback and you haven't given us enough information. I mean, it appeared that that survey was one size fits all, and it went out to all 67 counties, and one size doesn't fit all. And they ask questions without providing what the specifics might be. So thank you, Anne, for responding to Sam, and thank you, Roger, for speaking.
So
Just
we don't
saying.
really need to do any more as a board, right? Yeah, okay.
No, so.
And didn't I see it's coming up? They're on the BOCC agenda where maybe we'll get a little more info.
Well, I think Craig Cates is going to ask for a resolution from the county to, and I think Key West also to object to it. So obviously they're going to support.
Both of the governments are chiming in to object to it, basically.
Yeah. So, but as a board, I don't know that we want to say what we want, right? We're just telling people to.
No, it was strictly,
Be aware.
Do the
our
survey.
recommendation was to reply to Sam to acknowledge his, so that's the end of the goals and issues report.
I just want to
Thank you.
say one thing about the last audit monitoring the proposed public's affordable housing. So there was a meeting that took place in Key Largo, when was that, Thursday night? And the Topinos came, they brought the Blackstone group with them. And they brought pictures of the proposal, and they wanted to have another opportunity to tell the community what they were going to do. Some people thought, and I was a little disappointed too, because I thought they would try to do a better job about what they were trying to accomplish. But I think their two major goals was to dispel any rumors that were being passed around that they didn't have it could be anything that didn't necessarily have to be a Publix. It's definitely going to be a Publix. They claim they have a contract and it's going to be a Publix. The other one was that they would not be building the affordable housing. They wouldn't be able to build the affordable housing, and probably all we would end up with is a Publix if this got approved. And they wanted to say, no, we're not going to do one without the other. If we can't get the Publix, we're not going to build the housing. If we can't get the housing, we're not going to build the Publix. That's what they said at the meeting. Some of the discussion was that they couldn't get Rogo. I mean, there was, but anyway, they took questions and comments from the audience. Holly was there for a short period of the meeting. She didn't stay for the whole thing. But I got the impression towards the end, they were sort of defiantly saying, you know, we have a right to build something here, and if we can get it, we're gonna do it. So I didn't know if they were really, yeah, so we'll see. It's still, it's not on the VOCC agenda for this month, so, it's gonna be in December, so we'll have it come back in December. The people in the Upper Keys are opposed to the fact that they are wanting to build. Oh, and I also heard they're going to be applying for a zoning change and to change the comp plan so they can get ROGOs from Islamorada, because the comp plan does not allow us to transfer ROGOs, the affordable housing ROGOs from Scott. We're not allowed to transfer in between governmental groups and our comp plan, county comp plan. So they're going to try and change that, I hear. But I haven't seen that application yet, so. They have a lot of hurdles to overcome to get this thing done. The idea of the traffic study, the arterial time and delay traffic study was brought up. And that'll be on the agenda as well, rather the county. Well, it's not on this month, so I don't know when it's going to be discussed by the county. Yeah, that's the update on the, yeah, go ahead, Roger.
So at this point, Last Stand as an organization has not weighed in on the Publix development. Is that true?
You know, I don't think we have. No.
Okay. Well, I guess we just stay tuned and see what develops, and then we might want to weigh in at some point. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I suppose, because it's already, the planning commission did not approve it. The staff hasn't approved it. It's up to the BOCC to decide whether they want to blow through all those objections. But I think they have a lot more to overcome than just getting that overlay.
Just to summarize, is it simply an issue of more traffic, more congestion, the neighborhood doesn't need it? What's the big anti?
Yeah, it's the two big, I think traffic has been the big issue. It's on a blind curve and a divided highway that's already got some traffic problems. And the way the property is built, there's only one entrance they can build. They don't have access to any other entrance. So, you know, to have a 50-some thousand square foot Publix and 80-some units.
70,000.
No, they downsized it.
Oh.
They downsized it. That's their compromise. They downsized it to 58,000.
And-
But still, that's a pretty good sized store. It's going to supposedly there's a traffic study that we haven't seen yet. Something about 6,000 trips per day it's going to generate. That's a lot of extra trips in a place that's got a traffic problem already. But the livable communities for Tavernier, they don't want large commercial development. They want to keep the commercial development small, and it's pretty clear in their livable communities plan that that's what they want. That's why they have to get this overlay to build their own code to overcome the 10,000 square foot limit to new commercial development. And so yeah, so the subpoenas are like, this is the last 20-acre piece of property left in the Keys that you could possibly ever build anything on. So something's going to go there. So it might as well be what we want.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you. I think and the question was brought up, if they were to dump the Publix and just build a larger affordable housing project, I think that would be more acceptable by the community. But they claim they can't do it without the Publix.
It wouldn't be as many trips. Did anybody there throw out the premise that they're going to lose Winn-Dixie? Maybe.
No, he did. Nobody did.
Really?
No, I was surprised too. I was surprised that nobody brought that up. But they're not really necessarily going to lose the Winn-Dixie.
Right,
All these bought all of them, but they're going to keep some Winn-Dixies as they are. And we don't know if this is going to be one of those as you are Winn-Dixies.
The
They
only
are going to lose the pharmacy. They've already been told they're going to take the pharmacies away. But
yeah,
Publix
that's
bought
it.
Winn-Dixie?
the pharmacy at Winn-Dixie.
No, who bought Winn-Dixie? Publix?
Aldi's.
Aldi.
Oh, that I did hear that. Right. Okay.
Aldi's.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to close our Winn-Dixies. I think they're too high value and too
Yeah,
low.
they're going to convert a few of them to Aldi's, but I don't see them doing that to this one. This one, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see
I
that.
don't think any of them in the Keys. I think they're all going to stay as Winn-Dixies.
Right. So anyway, yeah. So there's a couple of things that have to happen for me to understand better what's going on here. And one of them is that whether the county accepts the traffic study, arterial traffic study, rather the DEO kicks out more ROGOs when they come up with their modeling. And yeah, those two things will drive how I think this project will try to go forward. But they seem pretty committed. That was the impression I got. They were like, well, you know, we do this all the time. We're good at it, and we're going to do this one.
Trying to get the Rogos from another sub area that's huge.
That is, but that's the one they're going to try and change. I heard they're going to file a comp plan change. And they're going to try and change a zoning too, which I don't understand that because they don't. Well, I guess if they change the zoning, that would eliminate that 10,000 square foot limit. I'm not sure about that either, because that's a livable communities issue. That's not in the zoning. I haven't seen any of that paperwork. I just heard rumor that it was being filed.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
the Publix, the proposed Publix and affordable housing at the CNEX plant was the last item on the goals and issues.
Right. I just wanted to give an update because there was a meeting since we had our G&I meeting, and yeah.
Okay.
We're on 4A2, is that right? Little too early?
Yes, tech and admin, and that's gonna be Mary today, right?
Yep, tech and admin, we had another meeting. Andy Cook joined us, as did Chris Massacott of Duval Street. We're still trying to get a handle on all the applications / all the software that we handle and make sure we know who's the primary user, that we know how to log in, etc. One key item that did come up towards the end of it was people using
Can you speak
personal
up, Mary?
emails.
Yeah, we're having trouble.
Is this better? Is that any better?
Not really.
I can hear you fine. I don't know what.
Yeah, he's just younger ears, maybe.
I'm right near the microphone. Is that okay?
Well, they'll have to be.
That's fine.
So one item that came up is if people use personal emails to conduct last stand business. One issue that Andy brought up with that is that if we ever get involved in any litigation, the lawyers can come after that person's email for discovery, which is very, very troublesome. I don't think anyone wants that to happen. And also that people can conduct last stand business not under last stand email. So it's an issue we're aware of. We're going to continue to delve into it and hopefully come up with some sort of policy on it. Additionally, we did start to talk about the way we collaborate and the different tools we can use. I think we know that we can get much better at it, and we're going to continue to work on that and come up with a recommendation to the board.
Sure.
Yes, Roger?
I just had two questions. One, with respect to Andy Cook, have we determined as a committee yet what our ongoing relationship and support from Andy will be, given our new website and new technology and et cetera? Is he going to be a useful support mechanism on an ongoing basis, or is it the technical capabilities of our new systems beyond what he knows, and are we going to have to get new IT support or help, or where do we stand on that, I guess?
What we were told with the website is the platform we're going for we're switching to is so easy, we wouldn't need any additional IT support on that. And Andy confirmed that we really wouldn't need him to help with our new website. If we want to keep him involved in any other way, such as, setting up new emails and things like that, we've got to continue to discuss that. I mean, he's great, but he is expensive. And if it's things we can do ourselves for cheaper, we need to take that into account. So that right now that remains open-ended.
Okay, thank you. And then the second point, was the latter point that you made, that although there's reasons for and against being able to use your personal email, Anne can tell you from the get-go, I'm very much against having another email address with a last stand suffix. So, and many, if not all, nonprofits in the Keys all use the personal emails to conduct their nonprofit business. So I don't really haven't ever understood the significance of the reasons to have an last stand email address. And frankly, I think that um could hurt our ability to attract board members. I almost didn't join the board because of the hassle of having another email address. And to this day, I have to check multiple email boxes. And sometimes I just, it makes it very difficult because sometimes there's emails I needed to see timely. I don't see them 3 or 4 days later. So,
I set up with even Joyce, how to filter those into what you got. So you're not looking in multiple places for emails. They
it
just
doesn't
come
work
up.
on my devices. I have 3 different devices I use for email and it doesn't work. I have to go check multiple
And
boxes.
what's different with Last Stand is, compared with a lot of other nonprofit groups, is we sometimes gore somebody's ox. Whereas I don't think the library board does. And I don't think, there are lots of other groups, homeowner associations. We hit people and developers in the pocketbook, and we make some people feel uncomfortable. So as inconvenient as it may be, when I check email, I do my personal one first, and then I go to Last Stand to the Gmail account. And I think from liability and just general political grumble purposes, that we need to maintain our Last Stand email.
We
But
agree to
Anne, if you
disagree.
can clarify, keyslaststand.org, is that, what we have now, isn't that or Mary, did your committee think that we needed to do something different than what we have now?
We're not recommending anything at the moment, but we need to look more into the issue. And again, Roger, I understand what you're saying, but if we're involved in litigation and you send an email out from your personal email, the lawyers can go after your personal email.
I don't have a problem with that. All nonprofits are subject to litigation. All companies are. That's no more than the normal risk of any other organization.
We'll wait for the committee to do their research and we'll come back to that.
Absolutely.
And maybe they can help work with some of these individual accounts, see if there's a way to streamline them instead. It's an
We can
option.
work for some, reasons of why it's so compelling to have to continue to do this.
And then we'll vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I'm still occasionally, when I don't hear back from someone, I copy or blind copy their personal because I know they'll see it. Sometimes it's like go weeks without hearing from someone. So
thank you.
Okay, are we done with the tech
Okay.
and ad, Mary?
I'm all set.
Thank you for that report. Memberships and outreach, do we have somebody for that report?
Well, I have been doing 0 on my trip from the last 5 weeks, so I don't have much. I know Mary's been holding down the fort and doing bits and pieces. So, Mary, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the grant, and I don't know if it does belong under membership and outreach, but I figure this is a good time to do it. For those who don't know, CFFK has a grant due in October. They are giving amounts from $5,000 to $20,000. It is due October 13th. So this is in some ways a plea. Does anyone have grant writing experience? I think Hamilton was originally going to do this and then he had to step away for personal reasons. I've looked at the grant. My biggest stumbling block here is, what are we asking for? The grant is both for mission building, general operating, or program support. So, you know, we can ask for operating expenses. We could ask for my salary and try and craft a compelling story about that. I don't think that's going to work very well. What I would suggest doing is in the strategic plan, we said we were going to do educational forums, outreach. And I say we stick with that. We say we're going to do 3 or 4. We said we're going to do it quarterly. So we're going to do 3 or 4 and explain why the public needs that, why we need to inform them, why we need the outreach. But I would like some consensus on the direction you want me to go. I don't want to start writing that and then 2 days before it's due, we change our minds.
So you're gonna do the grant writing?
I'm going to try. I have never done a grant before. I looked through it. It doesn't seem particularly daunting, but I don't know the tricks of the trade, so to speak.
Happy to help. I'm happy to help too. Yeah, happy to help too. I'm not experienced in grant writing, but I'm happy to help with that too. And I think you're on the right track with the education, the program support. That definitely sounds like a winning angle. That we could focus that first event with affordable workplace housing seminar, and we could try to structure expenses and all that around that.
Although it certainly weaves into mission building, because that's the reason we're doing outreach. So, I mean, you can kind of hit on some of those hot button topics.
Do you have the template, Mary? You can shoot to me. I'll read what they were look like the format, or is it just available on their website? Okay.
On the website.
Yep, I will send it to
Do
you.
we need do we need a vote to go forward with this grant writing opportunity, or did we already approve this?
You probably need to vote.
But
Okay.
what's your question, Roger?
Well, 2 things. One, Betsy Langan, who I think Alicia referred to several times, who's a grant expert and a consultant, she'll be glad. I've talked to her about it, and she'll be glad to review our draft grant proposal when we put it together, so she can give us some good feedback. And Mary, I love your ideas about. I think mission building is all about strategic planning. So I think we can mention the fact that we're in the midst of a strategic planning process. We've already spent $3,000. We hope to spend $1,000 a quarter on an ongoing basis to update and account and hold ourselves accountable to strategic planning. So that's a no-brainer to ask for that money. And then along with the events, I think we just heard on water quality that is another area that if we can get all those disparate experts together in one room and talk about all this stuff on water quality, that would be a huge positive educational event that we could help gain community consensus, get the city, the cause of the Florida Keys on the same page as FIU and with the other doctors and with the Marine Sanctuary. There's so many different parties all doing their own thing, and they're really not coordinated or coordinating together. So that in and of itself would we could get some money to do that. And what other maybe all 4 events. We ought to think about broad outlines of the 4 events we want to do over the next 12 months and try to get the funding for all those events as part of this grant.
So do we need to
Mary,
vote?
if you'd be kind enough to repeat the due date in October.
13.
October 13th.
Thank you.
Yeah. And all that stuff, though, does weave in. I mean, operating, I mean, the money we're spending with Duval toward mission building, the money we're going to have to spend to have events that also go towards mission building. It sort of all weaves together if we can craft it that way. If Mary can, I'll help you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Happy to do it.
And just
Do we need
we don't
to vote, or are we all gonna, or do we need to?
I
vote?
don't know. Can I make a motion if I'm hosting the meeting? I can make a motion that that we accept the grant opportunity and move forward with it.
Seconded.
Okay.
Second.
Any objections? Nope. Mary, you got yourself a job.
Get some money.
2 or 3.
Yeah. Is that it? Are we done with that?
With the
That's all I had.
members and outreach.
Yeah.
My plan is I'm coming back to the Keys on Saturday, and we're not leaving because there's so much construction going on here. It's a nightmare. So I'm happy to be in the calm of the Keys, and I'll be able to start focusing on doing some of those little social mixers for the big potential donors, the new people that have moved in, because we're kind of getting closer to getting into season now. So I feel like we can sort of do more of the outreach, and especially with, hopefully we get the budget together for some of the promotional material, we can start hitting people up.
And as my accountability hat on, I would now give 40 lashes with a wet noodle to the executive committee for not having met yet, but we are meeting next week and we will put something together. Same thing, communications and marketing. That group's been in some flux with the chair leaving, Brian taking that over the chairmanship, but not here this week. But several of us have been just marching along with the Duval Street media stuff that's just is due and has to keep going. So, and Mary's been covering that in other ways. If there's time, which there won't be today, maybe we can go through some of the final decisions on that.
Okay, great. That's very impressed with the Market and Outreach Committee. So, Duval Street Media Review. Now I put this on here because it was an email that was sent out with the 2 videos, and I think they were looking for some feedback. I don't know if they got it, and I'm not even sure if that's a committee that works on that or who's handling this.
It's been some combination of the communications and marketing group, but it's really been myself and Mary and Bob because no one else has been in town.
Did everyone, you got the final versions this morning, right? Didn't the final versions come across this morning?
Yep,
No,
I can even
no,
show
I
them
didn't
to-
get them.
Oh.
Why
the
don't you
well, I
want to
can
show
send
them? Why don't you do share screen, Mary?
Okay.
We're definitely going to run long today.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry
I-
about that.
Absolutely have a 2 o'clock hard stop, so I apologize if I have to jump off.
Yeah, me
Can
too,
you
me
come
too,
back,
unfortunately.
Andrea, so we can do some of our marketing-y stuff that we talked about pre?
I'm living out of a suitcase. We are leaving tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. I need to run and I have no vehicles. So I need to go to the bank and I need to do all these errands this afternoon before we leave because I'm sorry.
We need to look at the 15 minutes we got left and decide on what's the most important to cover in that 15 minutes.
Hey,
Okay.
Andrea,
Do you want
just shoot us
to
some
run
dates
this
and times you can do something where you can get on board with me and
As soon as
Mary.
I'm back in the Keys as of Saturday, I'm no longer mobile, living out of a suitcase. I'm back in the ground and that's great. So, and yeah, that Monday, the 18th is an open day for me, as you guys were starting to talk about. So any time after that is fine.
Go, Mary.
Okay, Mary. This is a new one than what you've sent us so far?
This
There's
is a
slight
slight
changes
revision.
from what we've had
Okay.
before.
So this is a short one. Or no, is this a long one?
I don't have sound.
I don't have a sound.
Yeah. Well, you can shoot, can we look at these offline?
Yeah, I can send them to you right after the meeting.
So what do you need? You will need from the board, approval or comment, or are you looking for a vote? I mean, what do we
Yes,
need with this?
CSM just said this is the last, was it version and
Yeah, I think we need a final up-down vote unless you have, some knee-jerk horrific reaction to any
Yeah.
of it.
It-
It's kind of done. We had to go. We can't ask them to keep changing and changing. We did add some terminology changes that address some people's concerns that spoke up. But we got to move on.
Yeah.
So you're going to have 2, a 30-second and a 90-second, and
Right.
we're going to use both of them.
Right, for very
Okay.
different purposes. 30-second would be on YouTube spots. We can use it as an introduction when we speak at different things if we wanted to. The 90-second obviously is asking a little more commitment for someone, but we could use it on our website. all
Website.
different places.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we'll do. We'll vote online after we see it and view it ourselves. Okay. All right, so I'm going to move on to the BOCC unless there's something else. I'm going to move on to the BOCC update. Everybody got a copy. Unless there's any questions, most of it's just an FYI of things that are going to be taking place at the BOCC meeting. What was updated was the Bay Drive, which we already talked about, that they're making some kind of a suggestion to compromise on that park. I don't know that we want to take a position on that. I think our position is good enough that we want to save it for public access, and however they want to work it out with the neighbors is. I just want to say on affordable housing that Habitat for Humanity in the Upper Keys Library is having meetings on how to apply and qualify and how it operates. And Dora put that on our Last Stand Facebook page for people to see if they were interested in coming to those meetings about a habitat, affordable housing opportunities. The other one that I wanted to bring out was that there's yet another waiver offer. This just found out yesterday on a 4,171 square foot expansion. This is for Wesley House. Wesley House wrote a very heart-wrenching letter saying that they're already, funded to the max, and they already give funding to people for housing through their program, and they don't think that they should be required to do the inclusionary housing. So, it does pull on your heartstrings that they do have a point, but they are adding, the staff recommended that they're going to go ahead and deduct 1,000 square foot from because they're planning on changing that rule. So the first 1,000 square foot doesn't kick in but we have to decide, I think, and I don't know if this expansion Wesley House is doing, how many more employees does it generate for Wesley House? And they do a wonderful nonprofit work in the community, but yeah, go ahead, Roger.
Wesley House gets funding through the Social Services Advisory Council group that
They
I think
do. I was going to check that and I forgot to look.
They
Yeah,
award
do.
like over $2 million every year to nonprofits, and I think Wesley House gets over $200,000 or $300,000 a year from the county. So, I don't feel. I mean, this is typical of all nonprofits to come in and ask for freebies in addition to the direct money that they receive. But it's just not. We got to say no sometime. And
Okay.
I mean,
we've written a letter from the Last Stand on this issue every time it's come up. And if you'd like, I'll put together another letter and send it around, and we'll send it out saying, we need to quit waiving these things, that we need to be serious about it, workforce housing for the community.
you're going to have a policy, enforce it, or don't have a policy.
Right. Okay.
And Dottie, at what mile marker is Wesley House in Key Largo?
They bought the old Lions Club building. It's behind the Tib Bank where the light is. At mile marker was at 99, 100, something,
Okay.
100, where the CVS is and everything right there.
Yeah.
It's off the highway. You don't see it when you go on the highway, but it's an old Lions Club building. And they're remodeling it. And I heard they bought it and they're remodeling it and adding this on because they're going to start offering courses to the families on kitchen and house, I don't know, they're going to add some services. So I think that means they're going to be adding employees. I don't know. So, all right. So I'll put together a letter. Did somebody make a motion?
I know that you put together a letter, and I know you'll do this, but just make sure you compliment Wesley House on all the great services they provide our community. And this is not what this letter is about.
Okay.
But I think you heard it. It's if you're going to have this policy, you've got to follow it consistently and stop waiving it.
Right. Okay. I also want to comment that, remember, the first one we wrote was for that Pinfish Entertainment. And they argued that they were going to hire high school students, and it wouldn't create a demand. Well, there was an article in the paper. They had their grand opening and they checked people at the door. You have to be 18 or older or with a parent to even get in. So because they serve alcohol. And I thought, well, that they got us on that one. And they waived the housing on that too. So, all right. So I'll write it and I'll send it out, and you all be free to make recommendations if you don't like what happened. And I don't know if there's anything else on here you want specifically, but I did notice in the conversation earlier, the Planning Commission is going to hear something on Palmer's Resort. Did you guys just talk about Palmer's Resort was objecting to Little Palm?
Joyce did, yeah.
Jay Marzella owns Palmer's.
Yeah.
Well, they're objecting to Little Palm, but
Palmer's, the Planning Commission says you've got 40 transient units there.
Right.
The representative of the development, Barb Smith, says, oh no, there are 52. So I don't think that's something that we want to get in the
No, I'm just surprised that if they're objecting to Little Palm Dolphin Resort, but then they are themselves trying to do a remodel. with more
And get more
transients than they
transient
have.
units to make more profit.
Yeah. Are we
become-
talking about the same people?
Yep.
No, no, I don't think the Marzellas, I think Jane
Oh.
Marzella died and I think they sold Palmer's way back when.
Okay, okay. So it's
Yeah,
a
he-
There's
different
another
owner now.
party that owns Farmers today, Joyce. Is that
Okay,
correct?
all right. That's why I was confused. I just heard the name Palmer's and I was like, whoa. Okay. That's it, unless anybody has any questions on that.
Charter County discussion update, did Schillinger,
Okay, that is going to happen. I sent an
Next week.
announcement out. That's happening
week.
on the 19th. And it will be Zoom, so you can watch it on Zoom. Yes, okay. And so he's going to be doing a presentation and Federation's hosting it at the Murray Nelson, and anybody interested in, and I'm going to record it so I can send the recording out as well if you didn't catch it. For people
Great.
who, if anybody has any questions that they want me to ask, or they can send it ahead of the meeting, I will send it to him, and yeah. So everybody got that announcement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Yes, thank
BOCC
you.
meeting is the following day, the
The
20th.
following day. And then, and they're gonna have an update at that meeting. So I don't know if that'll be different than what he's gonna present to the public on this kind of community meeting that he's doing.
Okay.
Okay, and that's it for me. So Roger, you got your Key West update?
Yeah, and I sent out the lengthy agenda. You know, I kind of like only having one meeting a month, but the downside is it tends to be a very long meeting with lots of information. I tried to put potential last stand interested items on the one-page summary, and to save time, I won't go through that. But if anybody has any questions on any of that, feel free to ask them.
Yeah, it looks like an interesting meeting. I did notice they want to rescind the Monroe County Land Trust funds for the lofts. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
I see
that's a little confusing in that when they initially conceived of no, it's actually the Gardens of Key West, the College Road Affordable Housing Project, I think that recently opened and is recently filled up. And I think what happened is when they initially requested the land money for the land authority to participate in that, they did use an estimated amount that they would need, and it turns out that what they asked for was 2 million more than what they really needed. So they're just rescinding and modifying the original request to the exact amount that they used for the gardens, which leaves $2 million in funding back into the trust authority for Key West to use for affordable housing. And then I don't know if I read this right, but it appears that there's now 13 million in the land authority available for Key West to use for affordable housing projects or workforce housing projects. So
Well,
I'm not certain of that, but that's what it appears to say.
You did notice that on the county agenda that they are going to be looking for a discussion about changing the Florida statute so they can use land authority money for home ownership, specifically because of the lofts issue. But you know how long that's going to take. So the lofts is supposed to be breaking ground this month, right?
The loss is going to break ground this month, and I have yet to hear. I was hoping Brian was going to be on the meeting so he could give us an update. But it's very vague. They've got it as an agenda discussion item, but I have not heard what the workaround plan or what the solution is. But the loss is moving forward, and yes, you're right. That legislation push, if they were successful in the 24th section, it would still be too late to fix the loss problem because they've got to move forward on the loss way before that. But it could fix future problems that are similar to the loss.
So you think lofts is not going to have a home ownership at this point?
I'm not certain which direction, whether they found money elsewhere to subsidize the home ownership piece or whether they're going to go all rental, or I don't know what the solution or what the proposed solution is, and it's not apparent in the agenda what the proposed solution is. So they haven't really showed their cards yet.
Okay. All right.
I did see in the presentations, the issue of the state of healthcare in the Lower Keys. I did not read the backup material. Is there a 30-second synopsis, or do you not know till you see the presentation?
There is a quick synopsis. There is actually a presentation that I didn't send out because I've been clogging people's emails so much with documents. But there's like a 10 or 12 page presentation that David, from the CEO of the Florida Lower Keys Medical Center. I have a little inside baseball on this one because I serve on the board of trustees for the Lower Keys Medical Center. And I think it's a little bit in response to some of the problems with some of the primary care doctors exiting their practice, like Dr. Norris has recently, as well as the cancer center closing, which Lower Keys Medical did their best financially to try to save that. And the company that owns it's going bankrupt. And the lease is so egregiously overpriced high that they couldn't make the numbers work. But you know, the Lower Keys is still committed to the you know, healthcare in Lower Keys, and there's certainly a lot of challenges in the near term to try to make sure, because we can't retain people in our community that we need to if we don't have a robust healthcare option. So that's the headline.
Yeah,
And
we
he's gonna
do.
get-
We have helicopters that are gonna fly into. That's what we're gonna
But-
do.
That's
We're
our
gonna
solution.
triage them at the
Solution.
hospital and airlift them
Airlift
out.
them out.
Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
what it seems like we're
Roger,
doing.
what's the background on College of the Florida Keys housing plans?
They are anxious. They're trying to expand their number of students, and the only way to do that is to provide discounted student housing. And so they're looking for money from local governments, and counties, and states, and federal, and everywhere to try to build additional student housing at the Florida Keys. So there's not any specific projects or funding, or there's no near-term solutions to be had, but they just want to offer that they would be willing to support additional student housing if they can find the funding to do so.
So Roger, I don't remember how long ago, it was a while ago, but probably before Irma. That's how long ago it was, that the one legislative session, they gave the Florida Keys like 300 Rogos for
They
dorms.
built one dorm. They built a dormitory.
Does it have
provided some-
300 units in it? Did they use all 300 of those?
I don't think so. I want to say that because it's near the pool, the community pool where I swim almost 3 mornings a week. And there's a 3-story housing dormitory there that houses, full. It's not near enough. Obviously, there's much more demand than exists. But my recollection is it's only like 120 units, or
Maybe
it's
I'm
not
wrong
anywhere-
about that. Maybe I'm wrong about the number of Rogos. Maybe it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
100. It was 100.
Yeah.
It could have just been they gave them 100. So
Yeah.
they built them.
Well,
Okay, they did use
yes.
them.
So they built some housing, but they've got more land out there to add even more housing if they could find the money to do so.
Is the community pool where the campus is?
Yes,
Mhm.
it's in the very back of the campus.
Okay. All right, Roger, thank you. So the next item is the Gene Stearns Legacy Society Challenge, and Roger, you wanted to speak on that?
Yeah, real quick, and it's kind of confusing, and because I had to have a conversation with Jennifer, several conversations to understand what's going on here and what they're trying to do with this new funding opportunity. But the headline is this: is that if you become a member of the Florida Keys Foundation Legacy Society, and that's their whole purpose is to attract members of their Legacy Society, and what that means is you put amount in your will to go to establish a fund at the community foundation, not today, but upon your passing. If you set it up in advance where you've got some dollar amount or some percentage of your residual estate to go to set it into this new account with the community foundation that you set up in advance, so it's funded upon your death, and then you can designate how those funds are to be directed in the future, to individual nonprofits, to general nonprofits, to general concerns in the community, etc. So they're trying to expand their number of Legacy Society members from, like, I think they've got 20 or 30. I'm fortunate enough to happen to be one. They hope to have 100, and so this matching grant was done to try to get more Legacy Society members. Meaning, all they want is individuals that can dedicate a small piece of their estate, whatever they deem appropriate, to establishing a fund with a community foundation upon death that will then operate under whatever terms that you set up in your fund agreement and fund the community nonprofits in the future. And long story short is that for some reason they allowed this grant to be eligible to those that were already Legacy Society members like myself. So the fact that I can show an estate plan that has this fund for the community foundation pre-set up, and that upon the death of me and my spouse, that these certain amount of funds will go to that fund, I am eligible for more free money. And it turns out that I'm eligible for a $10,000 donation of my choice to any nonprofit in the Florida Keys. And so what I would propose to do, and unfortunately I have a wife that is a former board member of the Florida Keys SPCA and is very much a longtime supporter of the SPCA. Half of our $10,000 new money is going to go to the Florida Keys SPCA, but the other half I'm proposing $5,000 to donate immediately to Last Stand. And I was thinking that perhaps we could use that 5,000 to do some sort of match or do some with our fall fundraising campaign. Can we, number one, I want to make everybody aware that there's this option if they'd like to donate, free money to a nonprofit. If all you have to do is set up this account with this community foundation, and you can make that happen. But alternatively, I've got $5,000 I intend to donate to Last Stand, and I'm just wanted to throw that out that maybe we could use that as some sort of matching gift to say, hey, members, we have an anonymous donor that's going to give up to 5,000 for every dollar that you give to support our technology project or whatever we want to say it's for. But I thought we could maybe use that 5,000 to leverage additional funding for Last Stand.
So, but the Last Stand doesn't get that 5,000 till you pass.
No, immediately.
Oh,
There's free money. They're giving away money from funding money to anybody that's willing to set up this account with a community foundation, not give a dime. I haven't given a dime to my community foundation.
Wow, that doesn't.
Oh, wait. I read you have to pledge money to them and you have to give them access to your will and your estate plan.
All you have to do is have this mechanism in your estate plan that you want to be a Legacy Society member, which means that you have an account agreement set up at Community Foundation with $0, and that upon your passing or the passing of your spouse, a portion of your estate, and you have to show them, okay, my estate is X. I'm going to dedicate $100,000 of X that's going to go to Community Foundation. Therefore, you're eligible to get free money and direct it to the nonprofit of your choice.
Well, Roger, what if you change your mind between now and your passing? They give you $5,000.
Well, that's a risk. That's a risk that they're taking with this program. I could
change your mind and say, I'm going to change my will.
I could direct this 10,000 to go to Last Stand tomorrow, and they're going to write a check to Last Stand, and then next week I could go change my will and do away with that.
That doesn't seem very right. You're
It's
sure that's
right
how it works?
It's right for abuse. Yeah, I agree with you. It is right for abuse, but then again, it's free money that they apparently.
No, I'm glad if you can get them to hand it over, but I'm just surprised.
In deep-pocketed funds that are willing to give to support the community's nonprofits. So why not?
So are you asking?
Denise has had her hand up for a while.
Denise?
Who?
No, not me.
Oh,
Well, there's a hand up there, whatever. At a different time, I think we could push this. It just seems like talking about going for major donors, talking about going for business, talking about, it just seems like we've got so many balls in the air, and this opportunity sounds complicated, and it sounds like it might interfere with our other fundraising.
no, he's suggesting that we do a match. You're talking about you don't want to do the match at this time.
It just seems confusing, and it seems like it will conflict with our other fundraising. But I defer to people who understand that.
Or maybe I don't understand what Roger's asking. Are you asking us to use your 5,000 deposit to raise more money? Or are you asking us to promote this Gene Stearns Legacy Society Challenge, or both?
Well, I'm wanted to promote the Legacy Society membership to the Last Stand board because there's a unique opportunity right now for Last Stand to get free donations as a result of any Last Stand board member joining the Legacy Society.
Okay, so
Okay,
you're just,
so that's
you're
number-
wanting to
that's-
promote it to the board right now.
Only to our board. Promote
Okay.
that to the board, and what that means is we've got a very aggressive fundraising goal in the next year. I think it was about $200,000. We've got to start. We've got to start executing on raising that money. And this is an opportunity to raise more money immediately. And it's free money. All you got to do is sign an agreement with Legacy Society. And like you said, Toddy, you can cancel it next week and we still get the money.
I can't
So-
believe they're gonna,
So what's
yeah.
what's the downside? There is
there
no
has
risk.
to
There is
be
no
some
downside.
safety net on the part of the,
So that's the
Uh,
Legacy Society thing. With respect to my personal contribution of my new personal contribution of $5,000 to Last Stand, I'm offering to the board as we decide on what our fundraising strategies are and our plans, and maybe that's going to come as part of our budget over the next week or two. We can use that 5,000 as an enhancement to leverage it with matching dollars. We have $5,000 sitting out there that we know is going to come to Last Stand. How do we use that to bring in more money in addition to that 5,000 as part of our fundraising plan? That's
Yeah,
the
and
only two
please.
things I'm suggesting.
Is there a deadline?
On the Legacy Society donations,
Yeah, before they run
it's
out of cash?
it's first come, first serve. Exactly. It's when they run out of cash. But I think they're not really going to plan on publicizing it to the greater world and for another month or so. Or maybe
you're
maybe this-
garbling, Roger, you're garbling.
Okay, sorry. They're going to do an announcement in the future about the program, so they're not publicly putting it out there too much right now, other than to existing Legacy Society members. But they are looking at new, trying to generate new Legacy Society members, and I think we've got probably 30 days or so if we want to figure out if we want to use the $5,000 donation from me as some sort of matching arrangement with some of our other fundraising plans. But we need a fundraising plan, and hopefully that will satisfy Joyce's issues or concerns about,
So
where we're going.
is
on
this
fundraising.
something the executive committee would talk about with their budget? You just mentioned that.
Yes.
No?
I mean, I would think this would fall under the outreach and membership, to which Andrea says she's back in the saddle come this weekend. Or maybe between the two, since she's on that, but I feel like we're down to like 4 full-time board members on this call, and maybe this needs to be re-brought up and earlier in the process, not when we're, overtime already. It sounds wonderful. I think we need more thought on it, more people involved. You did send it out board wide. I know I got it. Okay.
Yes. We'll talk about it in our executive committee next weekend.
Okay. I
Okay,
think we
yeah,
just need to do a little more sharing of info to people.
Right,
Sure.
right. Because
And Joyce, if you have any confusion, feel free to call me.
okay, so, all right, so that sounds good. If you guys want to talk about how, like I say, I agree with Joyce. We do have a lot on our plate. And to try and do a fundraising outreach, that would be whoever does that. And, so if you guys think that you can do it and you have a plan for it, well, I'd be happy to consider it. Yeah,
Oh, before we adjourned, I just have a few quick.
okay, all right,
Are we? Okay.
yeah.
Go. One is just kudos to that minutes document. I know you mentioned it at the beginning, but Mary Joyce, that was really easy to follow and understand. I thought the format was great. So congratulations to you guys on that. I saw one, I know we already voted on the minutes and now we're lacking our group, but I adjusted on my copy, that accountability position, that wasn't an interim thing because Chris wasn't available. He outright rejected taking on that.
Oh,
role. So I just wanted to correct that to whomever for the record. Mary and I are going to a community foundation nonprofit day tomorrow up in Marathon. So we'll give you an update next meeting or after this to see what we learned. But that should be good. And we're sort of not getting back to the strategic plan. I know we spent a lot of meeting minutes and time on it, but I'm starting to think maybe we need to sort of take some time and, kind of do it as maybe more of a quarterly update. I know she said don't walk away from it entirely. Everyone's sort of marching to that tune, but I do think we should come back, circle around to it at some point. in the next, little bit here. That was it.
Okay, so, does anybody have anything else to add? Okay, so the next board meeting is Monday, October 9th at noon. Anne is hosting. Bob and I are not going to be here for that meeting. Is everybody else gonna be here? Yeah? Okay,
Yep.
good. All right, and, I think after that, it's, oh, Roger, you're doing November, right?
That's correct.
Right,
Think
okay.
so.
All right, I think that's everything. I think we've, and thank you all for coming. I hope I did a fair job with the hosting here, so.
You did, and
Excellent,
congratulations for
excellent,
getting
Diane.
Dr. Preseno and Karen Bonesack. That was wonderful. I mean, I know it's
Yeah,
short time, but
they were very
wonderful.
pleased. They wanted to come and they were very pleased to come, and that was very informative and maybe some, well, yes, Roger.
One last quick question. Who is Karen Bonesack? She was never introduced.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my bad.
FKNS. She works at the sanctuary under
She's outreach, education outreach.
yeah,
Okay,
she
cool.
works with
Sounds
what's her
like-
name? Sarah Fangman.
Yeah,
Right.
she's
Sounds like
education
she's-
outreach, and I think she might actually be funded by FIU. But she's under, if you go under the staff for sanctuary, she's yeah, and
Well,
her husband was, let me think about this.
Or was it her father?
Her father, yeah, it was her father. You're right. There you go, Joyce. Her father was very involved in fish populations or artificial reefs or something, studies. He's a biologist or scientist of some kind. Very
He was
influ-
with the biology department, marine sciences, whatever, at I want to say University of Miami. And he was one of the people on the original water quality protection plan committee, whatever, so he was integral to the establishment of the sanctuary and the regs.
Yeah,
And
so she's got a really strong background and references and everything. So she's yeah, I'm sorry I didn't introduce her. Yeah, doing meetings on Zoom is such a different experience than when you're in person, so you can see everybody and know what you're supposed to
Wouldn't
do.
just follow up on that, and I think it was very enlightening. But it seems like what the doctor was presenting showed that the greater water quality around the sanctuary is actually improving a bit over the long term. Where it's getting worse is the water quality that we can directly impact is the water quality directly around our cities and in close in near shore waters in the Florida Keys. So I think it really made the point that water quality that we're concerned about and the only one that we can really meaningfully impact is getting worse. And then therefore there's a need for our role and our involvement. But Joyce, you might make a note that both of those individuals would be great non-board member ad hoc members of our water quality specialty committee and the issues and goals committees. As we go into water quality strategy items, we might solicit the involvement of those two individuals as experts.
Okay, all righty. I think we can adjourn, right? All righty. Thank you all.
Great job,
Thank
Dottie.
you.
Everybody,
I'll see you back in November when I get back. Okay, bye.
Great
Have a
have
meeting.
great
fun in
trip.
Greece.
I hope.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Mary, should we stick for a minute?
Mary, thank you for everything you did helping me with the meeting.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
Should we unrecord? Should we stop recording?